I'll start by introducing myself. Yes, so I'm Alex Nyambura, Postman Student Leader at the University of Embu. Yeah, I'm a student, an IT student joining second year. Yeah, and I'm passionate about blockchain technology and also building web and mobile applications. Yeah, you can follow me on, I think actually all social medias. I just have one username, Alex Moniki, but you'll mostly find me active on X and on LinkedIn. Yeah, and I'll be taking you through tonight's session. And I hope you leave with something. Yes. So the mission for today, you've been hired by a professional music blogger to create a workflow that helps them discover new music. So we did an API 101 session early this year where we learned the basics of Postman. So you can find the video on YouTube. I'll share the link before the meeting ends. You'll learn the basics, how to navigate using Postman and making requests. Yeah, so this time we are in API 102 where we're going to work with a real life API, in this case the Spotify web API, and we're going to create let's say just a simple application and see how you can, yeah, let's say make a song recommendation for the professional music blogger so that they can put a track and get similar songs to that. Yes, so that will be our mission today. Yeah, and also remember to share your learnings on X and on LinkedIn using the hashtag Postman Student, hashtag API102. And you can tag me at Alex Moniki, at Postman Kenya, and also at Get Postman, which is the main sponsor of this session. Yeah, and also I really hope I'm clear. I feel like the noise here is really loud. And also I will also be awarding the most active members in the session. Yeah, so I guess we can see what are we learning today. So we learn how to make an API request with auth, and I'll also explain what auth means. We'll call a real world REST API. In this case, I had mentioned we'll use the Spotify API. And also we're going to make multiple API calls and build our workflow. And we'll also visualize our data. Yeah, so yeah, that's the agenda. We'll start with the theoretical part, an intro to auth. We'll also cover auth and also an introduction to Postman workflows. From there, we'll get our hands dirty and learn how to build workflows with Postman. Yes, so I guess I'll go back to the meeting and see if there is any question. First of all, can you confirm if I'm audible? Yeah, most of you might be thinking the session has not started yet. Yeah, just to confirm if I'm audible. You can write in the chat. I'm not sure whether Baby has the part of reacting. Yeah, let me share the YouTube link right now. Yeah, the session is being live streamed and will be left there so you can watch for future reference. Yeah, I've shared the YouTube link. Yes, so I guess we can go on. Yes, so I'll start first of all with what is auth and why do APIs use it. So auth actually auth is an acronym for two words. The first is authentication and the second one is authorization. And these two terms they're not the same. So I'll start with authentication. Authentication is all about verifying your identity, or rather, let's say you have an identity card. I'll have to look at the identity card and look at you to verify that it's the same person. I'll have to authenticate. And authorization, I'll just use an example of a school ID. I believe most of you are in the university. When you enter the university, you'll be required to produce your school ID, and the person at the gate will have to look at the ID and look at you to see if that's the same person. So that's authentication. He'll have to verify your identity. And once you're inside the school, there's some places you can't access. Okay, maybe you can, but yeah, I'll just say you can't. A place like, let's say, the kitchen, because you are not authorized to be there. The people who are authorized are the staff. Let's say maybe a place like the server room, the CCTV room, you're not authorized to be there. So that's authorization. You have a limited scope of where you're supposed to be. Yeah, so that's the difference between authentication and authorization. Yeah, and just as I've explained, authentication identifies that you are who you say you are, and authorization verifies what permissions you have, or rather, what areas you have to access. Yes, so we have types of auth in APIs, and I'll start with the most commonly used, which is the basic auth. So for the basic auth, it just uses the normal username and password to verify who you are. Like just the normal websites, you go, you create an account, and you log in with your username and password. And at some point, it's not really safe because you don't know whether the providers are storing your password as a plain text, which is vulnerable to cyber attacks like hacking and also, yeah, most of these SQL injections. So that's about the basic auth. It uses the HTTPS to work. Yeah, so from there we have the API key and the OAuth. So about the API key, an API key uses an alphanumeric string for verification. So it's like being given an invitation to go somewhere. You carry your API key, you go and deliver it, let's say in a web browser, and the web browser matches the API key and sees, oh yeah, this person is allowed to be here. And then you'll have access to whatever data you're trying to access. So that's how an API key works. And so what we're going to cover now is auth. So auth, uh, we have two versions of auth. Okay, first I'll first explain how auth works. Most of you have tried logging into an application and you're required to maybe use your Google, Apple, Facebook, Twitter, or any other provider to log into that account. So I'll use an example of yeah, I'll use an example. Let's say someone created a contacts app and I'll be required to log in with my Google account so that it can collect my contacts. So this is what Auth does. It separates the access that is given, because if you look at your Google account, there are a lot of things. There's your name, your email, profile picture. So it depends on the application. An application will ask for what it needs. So in this case, if I'm using a contacts app, it will only need access to my contacts. And with that, I'll be safe from using the normal way of logging in with, let's say, my username, password, and maybe if it gets hacked, because I can't use my Google password there, because if anything happens to that application, my whole email, I mean my whole Google account will be compromised. So that's why Auth comes in, and it helps you to sign in using your account and gives specific permission, as we had mentioned earlier, authorization. So specific permission to what the application should access. So yeah, I'll just use an example of a valet key. A valet key for most of people, okay, I normally see this in movies. Yeah, I'm still a comrade, I have no car. Yeah, you see that during these big parties, uh, you see someone driving with a fancy car, and once they arrive at the doorstep, they give those people a key to maybe go and park the car for them. So those keys, that's the valet key, and it's limited. So you have arrived and you give that guy your key. So the key is limited. There are some things it can't do. Like let's say it can't open up the boot or something. It will only drive, and maybe for a limited amount. You just go park, and yeah, that's it. So you find that it has limited permissions. I hope up to there we are still okay. Yeah, so that's just how, yeah, you can relate Auth with a real life scenario. Yeah, so we have two versions of Auth, and we have the first version, which was Auth 1. And this was mostly used digital signatures, where you had to maybe share a secret with the application you're going to use. And it was somehow complex, like it wasn't easy to use. And this is where Auth 2 came in, where everything was just simple. You just log in, accept accept the terms. Let's say allow Google to access your contacts, allow Google to access maybe your username, Yeah, you just give it specific permissions and you log in. It was just simple. You didn't have to do all this digital signature stuff. Yeah, so that's just a brief. I don't want to go much into the historical part of it because I don't think it's that necessary. Yeah, so this is how it works. First of all, uh, when you log into an application, let's say, yeah, in this case, I want to create a contacts app. So I first of all log in with my Google account, and a request will be sent, an authorization request will be sent to me. And this is what most of you see, like allow contacts app to access your contacts. And once you click yes, it will now get a grant code, and the grant code will be used in the authorization server. So the client will make another request to the authorization server with your grant code. And once it takes the grant code, the authorization server will be like, okay, yes, the grant code is legit, which means the user, which is me and you, has allowed you to do that. So once it has the grant code, it will now do an exchange and give the client, or rather the application, an access token. So an access token is now where you want to access. So in this case, because it's a contact app, the authorization server will grant the client an access token to only access the contacts and nothing more, nothing less. So the client will now go with the access token to the resource server and access your contacts. And that's how OAuth works. Yes, so OAuth is actually, this is a visual display of Postman, the tool we are going to be using today, and we'll work with a real world API and see how it works. Yes, so what does this have to do with workflows? So in authorization and authentication, you'll find that most APIs really need to have OAuth because first of all, having authentication, or rather authorization, it means you'll have to go and, let's say, create an account with the API service provider. In case you use the API for malicious reasons, they, they'll know it's you. And also, it's used for maybe to limit you to a certain amount. At times we have maybe a million users making an API request to one server, and yeah, it will cause a lot of, let's say, lagging and slowing down. So this is why authorization and authentication is important, to limit maybe the number of users at a specific time, yeah, and such stuff. It's like having a padlock in your door to prevent unauthorized people, to prevent people from coming and going the way they feel like. Yes, so from there we're now going to get our hands dirty and, yeah, do some stuff with Postman. Yeah, so I guess before you can go to the technical part, maybe I can ask if anyone has a question, or maybe something you'd like me to clarify. You can just raise your hand and I'll grant you the permission if anyone has a question. Okay, so I guess we can continue. So in this, we have been hired by a busy music blogger to create a workflow that helps them discover new music. We'll use the Spotify web API and let the blogger search for songs they like and find similar music. Yeah, so in this exercise, we'll be using the Spotify API, the OAuth tool, and Postman. So some of the requirements you'll require, first of all, is knowledge on working with Postman. And yeah, I did an API 101. You can get it on YouTube. I'll share the link before the session ends. You also need to have a Spotify account and a Postman account, yeah, and maybe a cup of coffee. Yeah, so I guess I can share my other screen in just a moment. I hope my tab is visible from that end. Or rather, let me just share the whole thing because I'll be switching tabs. Let me share it all. And also remember, there'll be giveaways for the most active participants. Yeah, so I guess it's all clear now. So I'll just come here and I'll search for Spotify. web API, because that's what we are going to work with today. Yeah, and you'll just go to the first link and make sure you have a Spotify account, because we're now in the developer part. You see developer.spotify.com. So you'll make sure you have a Spotify account so that you can log into the developer dashboard. So I'll come and log in. Yeah, and I have an account already. Yeah. So I'll come and log in. Yeah, and I guess I'm in here. I'm logged in already. So one thing about APIs, before working with the API, it's always good to read the documentation. So at first, you see, we'll have to go to the dashboard, and it's here. This is where the dashboard is. We'll have to create an app and use access tokens, yeah, and such stuff. But yeah, I'll take you through all these. So I'll come here and also open Postman. I'll just go to web dot, or rather, you can just do postman.com. And it will direct you to the Postman website. I'll come and sign in. I think I logged out. Yeah, and I logged in with my Google account. So you can also see how OAuth is being used. So if I come and log in with my Google account, you'll see that I have access to the Postman workspace. So right now we have two tabs here: the documentation for the Spotify API, and the workspace for Postman. So in this case, I'll come and yeah, I'll use this workspace here. If you can remember how to work with the basics of Postman, you know, a workspace is where you'll want to put maybe some collection of APIs which you've worked with, and maybe share with your friends or keep it private. In this case, mine is public. Yeah, it's easily accessible by anyone. So I'll come and put it there, and we'll go back here and read the documentation. So first of all, we are trying to look for a way to recommend songs based on what the user has put. So I'll just come here and try to look for something, and I'll go maybe to tracks, yeah, and get recommendations, because that's what I'm looking for. So in get recommendation, I'll see some documentation here. Just a minute. Okay, yeah. So I'll come and see. I have my endpoint. This is the how I'll come and access my API. It's api.spotify.com. You can just come and copy it. And so how do I make a request? First of all, you have to come and read the documentation, and you'll see that we first of all need to provide sufficient information. That is, you can give maybe one song and an artist, and maybe it will look for similar songs that are related to the song you provided, or rather the artist you provided. So, and we really don't know the artist, so we'll come and look at how we need to put it. So first of all, we need the seed genres and the seed tracks. We can use the seed artist. You can just do with the word seed. That's how Spotify has named it. Its API. You can use the artist or the genre. Yes. So in order to do this, we see that first of all, we require to get a track, and a track is just a song, a track, and an artist. So I'll come here, and in my workspace, I can create a new collection, and I'll call my collection API 102. I'm not sure why my network is really slow, so I'll call it API 102, building workflows with APIs. And so the first thing I want to do is to get a track. So in order to get a track, okay, if I look on my right side, you can see that I'll have to provide a track ID instead of, I won't have to write the track name. So I'll come here and look for tracks, yeah, and get a track. and it's not what I'm looking for, because if you look at the endpoint, it requires me to have the ID, and I don't have the ID of every song. So I'll come here to search, and maybe search for an item, because search allows you to maybe search for an artist, search for a track, and you get the ID from there. So I'll come here and just have a peek at the documentation. Oh yeah, so I'll come and copy this endpoint. Once I've copied it, I can come here and create a new request, and I'll call it, what will I call it here? Get track ID, because that's what I need right now. So get track ID, and I'll paste my link there. So, and one thing you've noticed, if you look at most of these endpoints, let me go to playlist, you can see that they all have a common endpoint, which is this. So I can put that as a variable in order to reuse it. So I'll just come and select it and set as a variable. So I'll call this base URL in order to use it for future, and I'll define the scope as collection, because I want it to work only in this collection API 102. In case I come up with another collection, it won't be accessed. So I'll come once again and select. I've not saved it. Just a minute. I want to avoid selecting that forward slash. Yes, so I'll set a variable. I'll call it base URL. I'll select the scope as a collection, and I'll set my variable. So you can see that the notation for setting a variable is basically two curly brackets and the name of the variable. If I hover, I'll come and see my variable names. And also if I come here and look at the variables, I'll be able to see the values, both the initial value and the current value. So if I come and just send this, I'll get an error. So the first error I'll get, I've been told that I'll get a for one error, which means I'm not authorized to do that. So there's no token provided. So what we'll have to do, we'll have to configure our Spotify application. So I'll come here in the dashboard, and I'll create a new app, and I'll call it, I'm not sure what to call it right now. Let me just come up with Dundo Mix. So let's say maybe that's the name of my app, and Hot Vibes, my app description. And also I'll need a redirect URL. Yeah, and okay, just a minute. Yeah, I'll need a redirect URL. In this case, if I come here in Postman, you can see that, okay, the new version of Postman already detects the error I have. So I can set up a new authorization by pressing here, or I can go back here, and under the authorization tab, I'll select auth2, because that's what we want to use in this case. And you can see that we'll need a token, and we don't have a token for now. So first of all, let's go and get the callback URL. So what a callback URL does, in case of an error, there should be, okay, in case of a response or an error, that's where your request, or rather your response, should go to. So in this case, because we're just testing our API, we don't have an application or a website where we want to maybe send our response. We just put that because it's provided by Postman. In case of you see, this is where the user will be redirected in case of a success or a failure. And since we're not building anything yet, we're just testing the API, Postman already provides a redirect URL for us. So I'll just add it, and I'll select Web API. From there, you can agree with the terms. You can go read the terms, and also I'll save it. So after saving it, yeah, you see that right now I have my dashboard here. yeah, there's nothing important here. The thing I want to access right now is the settings, and you can see we have some stuff here. The first thing is the client ID and our client secret. So this will be used to verify our application on Postman. So if I come here, I'll see my client ID and my client secret because that's already, I call it free marks. You just come and copy paste it. So my client ID. And if I come and paste it here, you'll see that Postman gives us a warning that we should not store sensitive data. I mean, yeah, the same way you don't hard code some sensitive data on Postman. So I'll just use a variable instead. I can come and select it and set a variable. This is my client ID. I'll use capital letters in this case. And I'll select the scope to be my collection and I'll set the variable. So this will work the same case with my client secret. So I'll just copy it. I can go here to variables and client secret. And I'll select it there and save it. So if I come back here in authorization, instead of writing my client secret, I can do the two curly brackets and select my client secret. So if I hover, you'll see I have my client secret, but now it works as a variable. Right now I don't need a scope and I don't need a state because it's not defined in the documentation we're using. So I'll go back to the documentation. We were looking on how to search for a song. Yeah, so in this case, there's some details you need here. The auth URL and the token URL. So the auth URL, this is where after maybe hitting accept, this is where after hitting accept, it will redirect you to the authorization page. It will redirect the API to the authorization page where it will accept whatever you've accepted, and then the access token. Okay, I'll just go back to my slide and I'll show it to you. Just a few. Yeah, this is what I mean. So right now, this is the authorization server. So after providing my authorization URL, this is where it will go to, and it gets an access token. And yeah, basically this is what is here. So I'll come back here and you can see we have this auth something, and I'll have my authorization URL. So I'll come and copy that and I paste it here. I'll come back and select my token URL and I'll paste it here too. So as I was saying, right now if we log into the Spotify account, the Spotify dashboard, it will come and go to this URL, and once it's authorized, it will proceed to go to this URL and get an access token. Then yeah, it will go ahead and do the thing. So with that, we remember whatever we are doing right now, we are trying to get a new access token because we don't have a token yet. So once we have all this filled, yeah, we can come and get a new access token. And once I press this, you'll see something similar to what you will see. So I'll just press it and you can see that the application Dundo Mix, the one we've just created right now, wants to log in with my Spotify details. You see that it wants my name, my username, my profile picture, my Spotify followers, and my public playlist. Yeah, so I'll agree. Yeah, and it will log in. So it has already gotten the access token, so I'll proceed. And this is my access token, and you can see it's a long string. So yeah, and also I can find it expires in 36. I think this is in seconds, which means in the next 1 hour my access token will be expired. It's like having a school ID, which is worth, let's say, 4 years, because yeah, that's the normal program duration. So the same case with an access token. So I'll come and use that token. And if I come back here, okay, first of all, let me save all this. If I come back here, you remember we got our 4.1 error. And if I make the request again, yeah, I'm glad I got another error, which is a bad request, because yeah, we didn't follow the documentation on how to get a track ID. So at least we don't have the authorization error, which means we are successfully logged into our Spotify application. So we want to read the documentation and understand how do we get okay, what's the proper query. So I'll come back to the web API, and if I try to look at this, you can see we just use HTTPS, and then the endpoint. From there we'll use a query parameter, and yeah, we'll add some details here, and also we'll have to add the type. Yeah, the same case if you read, okay, this is a summary of everything you're seeing at the center screen. So in this case, I'll just come here. I've already known I need a type and I need query. So I'll come and go here in the params, and yeah, the first one is a type. So what I need is a track. Yeah, and you can see up here, the type of thing I'm searching for is a track. And then I'll have now to put a query parameter and be like, what type of track do I need? So yeah, I'll come here and try to see. So if you look at here, this guy made a query of remaster. I'm not sure that remaster is a song or a person. And then this is the way a browser spaces their thing. So yeah, this is the spacing, but in Postman this is done automatically. So we can see that there's a way these people have defined their API. So in this case, if they want to specify a track, they'll write track, a colon, and then the name of the track, and then an artist, a colon, the name of the artist. So I'll just come and do the same. So in this case, let's say track, colon, I'll try to pick a song. In this case, I'll go with, yeah, I'll just go with Castle. Yeah, and with Postman, you don't have to master all those %20 or something to space your work. You can just space it and Postman will automatically do that for you. So I'll just come and space. And what else do I need? I need I'll go back. Once you have a track, you have an artist. So in this case, I'll use Halsey as my artist. Yeah, Halsey. Yeah, and I guess I have all that right now. Don't be worried about the space. By default, Postman does that for you behind the scenes. So I'll come and save and send, and I hope this comes out well. Yeah, so we get a 200 status code, which means we've gotten the response well. So if I come and look here, you see that we asked for tracks. Remember our type was tracks. That's what I wanted. And I have different tracks. You see in my items, I have a list. This is in form of a JSON data. So the square brackets represent a list, which means this is our first item. I'll come and shrink some of it. Okay, before I shrink, I'll come and I'll shrink the album part. So I'll come and look at the artist and also shrink it. Okay, yeah, I won't shrink it first. If you look at the artist details, you can see the name is Halsey. Yeah, and that's what I was looking for. So that's the artist, and more details on this. I'll come and try to look. Okay, the markets are not important right now. Yeah, the ID of this track and the name of the track is Castle, just as we had made the request. So because it's a list, if I shrink this, I'll get more details, maybe of similar songs or maybe remixes. You can see we still have Halsey. Let me shrink this thing because it's too big. We still have Halsey. Yeah, and this one is now Badlands. So you see that we have already gotten a track, but we haven't got a track ID yet, which is needed. So with that, I can come and decide to can decide to write a script. Postman allows us to write a script. In this case, you can use a prescript or a postscript. So a prescript works before you make a request, and a postscript works after you make a request. So in this case, I want it to work after I've made the request. So I'll come here. Yeah, I'll just open up my console actually so that you can view it, and I'll clear everything. Yeah, I'm trying to access. Yeah, so here it is. So first of all, I'll have to do a PM. If you did the Postman fundamentals course, you'll know how to work with this. So I do a PM. I think PM is just Postman. They created it that way, and I'm looking for a response. So I'll do a PM.response, and the response is coming as a JSON data. So I'll do JSON, and in this case, let me set it as a variable and console it on the terminal so that we can see what we're having. So I'll call it body, and I'll do a console.log, and I want to print whatever the body is. So if I send, you can see that this is what has been provided as my body. So my body has tracks, and it has all these details and items. So we have so far 15 songs that, okay, songs or remixes. I'm not sure how they have been defined. So this is the general detail. And I can also decide to filter out, and maybe, yeah. So right now I want to get the first track, because I think the first track is always the most accurate. So I'll do a const first track. So I'll save whatever I'll get in my first track variable, and I'll do a body dot. In this case, I have tracks. So tracks. If I open up tracks, I have items. So dot items. And then in my items, I have a list of 15 items. I want to get the first one. And in programming, you start counting from 0. So I'll put a 0 there. And yeah, first of all, let me see what I'll get after this. So if I come and log my first track, you'll see I'll only now get details for one track. In this case, it's the first song. And in this case, I just need the ID. And yeah, you can find the ID here. So I can come and do const track ID is equals to first track dot ID. And I'll come and log my track ID. And if I make that request, the only thing I'm expecting right now is that ID. So after getting that ID, I want to use it later on. So I'll store it in a variable. And to do that, I'll come here and do a pm.collection variable. And I'll set. So the set function takes two parameters. The first parameter is the name, which is track ID in this case, and then the variable itself, which is track ID. So after doing this, and I save and send, so this track ID will be saved in a variable known as track ID. If I go back here and look at my variables, you'll find it there. Then you can find you have my track ID. So with that, I can now try to come and explore more. Okay, let me actually let me try to visualize this thing well. So I'll just do a const track name is equals to first track dot, let me see how it's called here. So we have an ID, just name. So I'll come and do name, and I want to print my track name. So the thing I'm trying to do is to see the name of the track that I'm getting. In this case, you see we have castle. Yep, and at least now we know that we're getting the correct details. So One thing we'll want to do is to do some cleanup on this code. So instead of having our track hard coded here, I can just set a variable and call it my track. I'll select the scope again and also the artist. I'll set a variable and call it artist. So this will make my work easier, because let's say I want to change this stuff. So I'll come and change. Let's say I don't want Halsey again. I want something like, I'll do Pology, or wait, I'll do Kid Laroi. And without you. So if I come and save this and I make a request again, I just want you to visualize the response I'm getting. So I'll get without you. And also remember, behind the scenes, the track ID for this track is being saved in my track ID variable. And actually I'm interested in the track ID. So I'll go back to the documentation. Yeah, and I think we have that already. So we'll now go back to how to get a track recommendation. So what exactly do we need? First of all, we need the seed track here. And you see, it's needed as an ID. So we'll have to come and create a new request. And I'll call this get recommendation. And you can remember we set a variable, so I won't go the hassle of trying to write the whole URL again. So I'll just use base URL, and I see it's / recommendations. So what else do we need? We also need a seed genre or a seed track or a seed artist. In this case, they've specified you can just use one of it. You see, only required is seed artist, and seed tracks are not. So we need one of it. And in this case, we have our seed. We have a seed track ID. So I'll come in here in my parameters. I'll put seed track. I'm not sure that it's plural or singular, so seed tracks, tracks. And I'll set that to be the variable I'd set for track ID. Great. So first of all, let me close the terminal. And if I hit send, I hope we won't run into an error. And gladly we got a 200. So whatever's happened right now, this API endpoint, it gets a similar track, or rather a similar taste of music based on the music you've provided already. So in this case, I'll have to look at it. First of all, you can see we are getting tracks, and it's a list. So I'll come and look at my first. I can see that the artist of this first track is Alesso, and the name is okay. Actually, it has 2 artists, so I'll skip that part and skip this part. Market. I want to get the name of that song. You can see Chasing Stars. This is my first song. So first of all, if you realize, it's so hard to visualize this data, so I'll come and just write a script so that I can visualize exactly what I want. I'll go back to script and I'll do a const track, or rather the body is equals to postman dot response. My response is a JSON. From there, I'll do a const. What do I want? I want the name of the track. The name. So for my name, I'll come and call it track name. is equals to body. So far this is my body, so body dot tracks, and in my tracks I need, let me shrink it. Okay, first of all, my track, I want to get maybe 5 similar songs. So in this case, I'll use a JavaScript object known as slice, not slide, slice. And I want to get just 5, so from 0 to 5. Yeah, and then I can, just a minute before I use slice. Let's first of all verify that we're getting the right thing. So for my tracks, let me get first the first track. In this case, it's 0. Yeah, and dot name. You have to be very careful with how the API defines its name. So after doing that, let's first console.log and see if we've gotten what we want. So I want to print out my track name. Oh, let me open up the console. So I'll send it, and I'll be getting the first one. So you can see how sun goes down. If I send it again, I have Flames by Avril. If I send it again, I have Grace. So in this case, I want to get the first 5. I won't use 0. I'll now use the JavaScript object known as slice. So dot slice. I want to get the first 5. So after doing that, just a minute. If I hit send, you'll see I'll only now get 5 tracks. Yeah, and we are lucky to have 5 tracks so now. So one of the agenda I had set, we're going to also visualize our data. In this case, if you go here, we are visualizing our data as a code, and let's say our client is not that much of a code person, so we'll come here in the visualize tab, and yeah, we'll have to write some maybe HTML and CSS code. In this case, I'll come and define a const template. So for my template, actually, I'll just give it, I'll have to write my HTML code here, and so I wouldn't recommend single or double quotes because they don't support multi-lines. So in this case, I'll use backticks so that I can write on multiple lines. So I can come and use a h3 and say get new songs, and I can close it h3. And if I save it and hit send, I want you to see that whatever we are getting here. Oh, I forgot to call it. So after doing this, you'll do post pm dot visualizer dot set, and set takes 2 arguments. In this case, the first one is the template, which we are defined up here, and the other one is a variable, but in this case you don't have a variable, so I'll just hit send again, and you can see we have our header tag, which is get new songs. So once again, we have 5 songs, so I'll have to use an ordered list, maybe to list those songs. So UL, and instead of maybe writing all that list, I can decide to use a for loop. In this case, I need a list. I can decide to use a for loop here so that it can iterate with the combination you've given it. So I'll come and I'll do this, and then hash each, and then the response you are getting here, in this case, in each track name. So each track name, and then I'll come and close it and do a / each. So whatever I'm doing here, in each track name which will be provided here, I want it to just, instead of having to write li 5 times, because even the client might change their mind in future and be like, I want 100 similar songs. I won't have to do all that, because the one of the characteristics of clean code to reduce redundancy. So I'll just iterate and print all that here. So in this case, I'll come and put the name, because if we see how they were defined, it had the name. So just a minute. If I try to send this, I want to see what it will return. Yeah, and it won't return anything, because remember, here we have template. Once you set a template, you also have to set some of the variables that you're using. So I'll come and set my variable here. I'm also using track name. So track name will be red inside here. So wait, no, you'll have to use single curly brackets. And if I hit send, you'll see I'll get a list of similar songs. If I hit send again, you see, you get a list of similar songs based on what you've added. So I can make this even much fun by making this clickable. So I'll come here and let's say add a hyphen, and then after adding a hyphen, I can use a tags, because that's what we use in HTML to add hyperlinks. So from here, I can use a href, and in order to get that variable, or rather whatever it is, I can come back to, okay, first of all, let me save this. I can come back here and see where it's been defined. So we have our track, an album. I'll close the album, artists, market. We have an external URL here, and you'll see if I open this link in a new tab, that's the URL to that specific track, because if I open it, you can see it goes and plays that music on Spotify. You see, it will open directly to where the song is. So by doing that, you can see that it's external URLs and then Spotify. So I'll come back here. I'll come back in my script, and once again, I'll use a variable, because this data is not static. It will have to change from time to time. So external URLs. And then I also do a dot. Dot actually means like a child of that. So Spotify, because Spotify is the next thing there. So after doing that, I can go back to visualize, and I can save this and send. Just a minute. Let me try to set up a space here. Okay, I'm not sure why it's not. Oh yeah, I'll have to add something here. So let's say, actually, instead of doing that, I can just take the name, so that to make the song clickable, and add it here in the a tag. So if I hit send, yes, you can see now that the songs will now be clickable. And because I'm using Postman on the web, it won't allow me to access the link, so I'll have to open it in a new tab. So let's see if the song we've clicked is what is here. You can see here it's arcade, and that's what we clicked. So that's great. So we can also just make this whole process simpler by running it at once. So I can come here and do run, and then set the order in which I want it to do. So you can come and drag and drop based on, let's say you have multiple requests. In this case, you can see I have a track ID. I want it to run first. Once track ID runs, it runs get recommendation, and then I can do run, and then it will run, and I'll get my response here. It will run both of them. Yeah, so that's one of the ways that, yeah, I can use Spotify, and I mean I can use Postman and play with the real world API. In this case, we were using the Spotify API. So I think I'll first of all allow time for questions. I think I've really talked a lot, or I'll maybe, yeah, in case you need any clarification somewhere. Okay, Ted. Ted, maybe let me just unmute you and you can ask your question. Okay, Ted. Hello, Ted. Okay, so I guess I'll do a small recap of what we've done. So let me just return my screen. Yeah, so basically what we've done, come back to my slide. We've learned about auth, and we've learned that auth, once you've built an application, and maybe in this case we have used a song recommendation app. So it will first of all ask you, the user, to accept the app to access your data. And once you do that, you've granted your application a grant code, which it will now go to the authorization server. In this case, it's the Spotify server. And you saw that we had added an authorization URL. So that's where the grant code will be taken. And once it's approved, it will be given an access token, and the access token will be used to go and access whatever you're having. In this case, you can see that it accessed my public playlist, and yeah, I was able to get a recommendation based on the songs I like. So we had to navigate in the Spotify documentation, and we logged in with our Spotify account, the developer dashboard. And what we were doing, we were getting recommendations based on based on based on a track that you gave it. Let's say if you provide one song, it gives you similar songs. So by doing that, we have an endpoint here that is done. And some of the requirements, you either had to add a seed artist, a seed genre, or a seed track. In this case, we decided to go with our seed track. And in order to get a seed track, we had to come here and search for an item. And in order to search for an item, we had to use this endpoint and then start to make some requests. So if you come here, we have first of all to select a type. The type we chose, in this case, we don't need an album, we chose a track. So that's the type we selected. And then in the queries we chose a track. For the track that we chose, you can choose just any track, so you can just do sad. And then since this is not Postman, let me just do the %20 thing to represent a space. Once you have a track, the next thing you'll have is an artist, and then maybe %20 again. And then you'll have to separate, an artist, and then you'll have to put a colon and define the artist you want to put. In this case, I think it's XXX I'm not sure of the spelling. Tentacion, yeah, Tentacion. So Tentacion. And once you have that, this is now what we are doing. And in order to do this, once you do this, you'll get a whole string of data, which, yeah, most of it is useless. So that's where we had to come and write a script to filter out and get the track ID, because it's the track ID that we wanted. So first of all, the whole data will get it as a JSON file, and a JSON file, I showed you how it looks like. I'll just this is a JSON file. So, and a JSON file, we saw that the items came as a list, which means we have a lot of maybe songs or tracks that are that way. So we access the first one because it's the one we can say it's sure bet exactly what we are looking for. So I'll have to access since it's in the body, and then the next thing here is track, so dot tracks, and then dot items, and we access the 0th, or rather the first item in that track. From there we have a track ID. So in order to get a track ID, just do first track dot ID, because you see after accessing the items, let me shrink it. This is our item. After accessing the item, okay, I think I shrunk all of it. You can see there's a lot of data. So in this song, the song has an album, it has artists, it has the available markets. So in this case, we really want the ID. You can see we have the name and the ID. So this ID is what will be used to get the recommendation. So once we have our ID, we'll use a pm.collection variable, and we'll set a variable by the name track ID. So track ID, whatever track ID we get here is what will be saved in this new variable, which I've just called it the same name to avoid confusion, and also, yeah, just to make it simple. So whatever track ID is gotten here will be set as a collection variable in track ID. And if we went back in our variables, whatever song was recommended there will come and be stored here in the track ID. So that track ID will later on come to be used in the song recommendation. And if we go back to the documentation, like how do we get a song recommendation, we'll see this is what is needed. Spotify API.spotify. Once you have recommendation, these are the queries. So we'll do again a / seed track, and then you just specify that. And thanks to Postman, we can just do that in our parameters. We'll add a seed tracks the same way they've just defined it here, seed tracks, and then our track ID. You can see you set it as a variable, so that in case we just come in, maybe change the name of the artist. If we come and change, okay, let me do some Kenyan musicians. Okay, please write in the chat some Kenyan musicians, the name and the song. Yeah, the name and the song. I try to see if we can do that. Just one name and a song. Yeah, you can type in the chat. I'm waiting. Okay, anybody? Okay, I guess I'll just have to search. Let me do Gengeton. Just do artist. Okay, I'll go with Nyashinsky. And one of the songs they've done, yeah, Time of My Life. So I'll come and change my track to be Time of My Life. And my artist will be Nyashinsky. Yeah, so I'll just come and save this, and once I save it, I can, yeah, actually I've remembered we did an automation, so I can just do run, and it will get the track ID and get the recommendation. So I'll just do all that, and it will now give me, okay, I got an error. Let me check what the error is. Let me first of all do it separately. So I'll send. I'll check the console. Cannot read ID. Oh, actually, I'll have to change, or rather delete this, because at this point it's somehow static. I'll save it and I'll run. Okay, I'm not really sure what's wrong. Let me check. Okay, let me try a different song. Silencer. I'm not sure if it's the spellings or what. Oh, I think I had misspelled. Yeah, so right now, if I come and send this, I'll get a response. So if I come back here, you'll see that it has gotten the track ID for this song, which is Silencer, and it has stored it there. So if I come back to get recommendations and I send, because so far it will use that track ID. Yeah, and I think you can see now songs that are related to whatever request you want. We have Akam or Jehovah, Kitanda, and Good Bad Girl. Yeah, and I guess now it's even much more clear. Okay, yeah. Yes, I guess it's now clearer. So I'll go back to my slides. And in case you have any question, just feel free to ask. Yeah, so that's what we've done. We got an access token. Then after getting the access token, we got the track ID. The track ID, we used it to get the recommendations. And I mean, you can actually go and try this for yourself. Instead of using a track ID, you can use an artist ID, because you saw we can also use the seed artist. You can use or you can even use both of them to narrow down exactly what you want. And so it's now your turn to do this. So I'll just put this as an assignment. There's a collection I'll share in the chat. You can go and do it. You can go and try it. It's like an assignment. Yeah. So you want like more accurate songs. So okay, Miriam, I can see your hand is raised. Hello, Miriam.
I was asking
Yeah.
on my side in my Postman,
Yeah.
when I go to the authorization side, um, it's asking me to sign in using the username and password. So I'm wondering, is it that I'm supposed to fill in the credentials for the Spotify developer site, or is it that I'm supposed to fill in, which logins am I supposed to fill in there?
Okay. Have you used the auth method? Because maybe you selected a different one. Which one did you use?
Um, I didn't specify any actually. Basic out actually, basic.
Oh, actually, you are not supposed to use basic auth. Let me
Okay.
just share my screen and show you the one you're supposed to
Okay.
use.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll share my whole screen. Okay, so if you go to authorization, you're supposed to select, okay, first of all, I'll leave this part. You're supposed to select auth 2, because that's what we're working with right now. And once you have auth 2, you'll be required to get a token, an access token, which in this case we don't have. So we'll come here and do some configuration with the Spotify API. So first of all, you need a client ID, which I told you will come here in your dashboard. Once you're in your dashboard, yeah, this is our application. You'll go to settings. After you've created, you'll be required to fill in a client ID and a client secret. And yeah, you'll come and fill it here. And then you'll have to set up an auth URL, which I explained. It's what you're supposed to, it's where you'll be redirected to go and authenticate, and also an access token URL where you'll be redirected to get an access token. But all that will be done automatically. The only thing you'll do is to accept. So once you've set up all these, I think they're just 1, 2, 3, 4. And also remember to add a callback URL in your application here, so that in case of a response and maybe a reject, it will just redirect back here. And in this case, Postman provides us with a redirect URL because we are not building something yet. Maybe I'm building a website, so I'll need to add a specific link because it's my website. In this case, I'm just testing. So Postman provides that for us. So once you have all that set up, if you come here and get a new access token, you'll get this screen that allows you to sign up. See if I agree to the terms, it will come and get a new access token. And once it's done, you can say have a new access token. So far I have 2. I can just delete it, or let me just use it because I'm done with the session. Yeah, so once you do that, from there you can now make the request because you won't get a for one error. I mean forbidden, because you are allowed to use that. Yeah, so is that clear?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, anyone with a question? Yes, so I've shared a link in the chat. You can go and try to do this and also see what you'll score. Yes, so you can go and explore a lot of things because the Spotify API allows you to do a lot. You can create a playlist instead of going to Spotify, create a playlist. You can just do it using an API, and also to do the recommendations also. Yeah. And so from there, the next thing we're going to do, just a minute. Yeah, from there now, in case you want to continue the course and get certified as a Postman Student Expert, Postman provides a free course on APIs. I'll just share it I'll share it in a few. Yes, so you can access that link and enroll for a free Postman course, and you'll get certified as a Postman Student Expert. And I know most of you are not from our campus. In case maybe your campus doesn't have a Postman Student Leader, once you're done with the Postman Student Expert course, you can enroll to become a Postman Student Leader at your campus and promote API literacy. Yes, so I think with that, I'm going to finish up. Yeah, that you can also scan that QR code. Yeah, you can scan that QR code. I'll just give you a few minutes, and also remember we are awarding the most active members and also the most. And there'll also be some giveaways from Postman. Yeah, you can scan that code or click the link that I've shared. Yeah, so this is how you're going to win amazing swags now. Yeah, so we're going to do a blog writing competition. So you just share what you've learned, write just a short blog and publish it in Medium or dev.to. And remember to use the hashtags Postman Student and hashtag Postman API. Once you're done with that, you can share the link in my socials. Remember my username is always the same at Alex Moniki, or I can also share my email and phone number in case you want to submit it there. So I'll share my username in the chats, my email and my password. Not my password, but my phone number. Yeah, so once you've done that, I'll review the short blogs you've written, and then yeah, there will be awards. So you can also access some of the resources. You can go to learning.com and learn more about APIs. And also you can go and look for some more APIs, e.g. the PayPal APIs, Uber APIs, and the explore.postman.com. And in case you get stuck somewhere, you can go to the community forum, which is community.postman.com. And I guess with that, yeah, I'll just allow one more. I'll just allow like 3 minutes for anyone who feels left behind, or rather, you have a question. I can give you 3 minutes to ask. Yeah, then we can end from there. Anyone? And remember, the session is being recorded and also live streamed on YouTube.
Hello,
Oh, hi.
yeah, I am I am Anastasi Dukundabera from Rwanda.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, I'm a newbie in the field of computing, and right now I don't know what what is API token. I think you can just tell me a little bit about API token. Thank you.
Oh, pardon?
Have you got me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I've told you that I am a newbie in the field of computing, and just right now, I don't know what is API token. I think you can tell me a little bit about API token.
Okay, so an API, it stands for Application Programming Interface, and it's a software that allows you to communicate to, let's say, a third-party software. I'll use an example. Let's say you want to build a weather application. Right now, I know you can't start setting up your own weather balloon to go and collect the weather data. So in this case, the weather companies have provided APIs for you to use, because you can't start constructing a weather station in order to collect that. So it's used freely. Yeah, and I also use another example for an app like, let's say, TikTok. In order for TikTok to access your camera, it will need to it will need to use the hardware APIs in order to access your camera. Yeah, and there's a link I've shared. I think I'll pin it, and I'll also share a YouTube link to the previous session where I explained more about APIs. You have sent the link to the previous session, and you can also do a free API course and learn more. It's actually free and very informative. Yeah, I've shared 2 links, and I think they really help you a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, welcome. Okay, anyone else?
You have mentioned on having okay, there are Uber APIs. I wanted a recap on that because I've seen they are really good. So maybe if you have more suggestions apart from Uber and Spotify, which other ones do you can you recommend?
Okay, there's also Daraja APIs. I think you know them from Safaricom. M-Pesa. Let's say you want
Oh,
to
yeah.
automate payments in your website and you
Okay.
don't want the M-Pesa database, you'll just integrate the Daraja APIs in your application, and you can use it to make transactions.
Oh,
We'll share the link actually where you can go and find more. There's an API. There's an API for everything actually.
okay, nice.
And let me share a link to where you can get more APIs. Yes, so I've shared a link in the charts. You can go and explore the various types of APIs you can play around with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, okay, one last question.
Can you please include your country code in your number?
Yeah,
Include it. Okay, thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. You can stop. And I thank you all for taking your time to attend the session and also, to be here. Wish you all a good night and till we meet again.
Thank you too.